Welcome to the Mountaineers Guild Match Report beta test. We don't really have a snappy name or any kind of defined intro decided yet, and we were hoping you all could help us out with that. At the time of this match, Brad is ranked not as high in the world as he thinks, but probably higher than he deserves, and I am only slightly ahead of Harambe. My roster is composed of ferrite, iron, hearth, alloy, furnace, cast, ferrous, bolt, and burnish. You'll probably notice that that's only 9 players. I don't feel that any of the other players in the 10th slot add any kind of utility that I can't already cover in these 9. Brad is continuing his break from Butchers, playing the Morticians in anticipation of the Ratcatchers Guild release. Brad's 10 is Obulus, Dirge, Cosset, Silence, Ghast, Skulk, Brain Pan and Memory, Mist, Bonesaw, and Graves. The entire reason Brad is playing Morticians is to get used to using Skulk, Bonesaw, and Veteran Graves, as they are the players who also play for the Ratcatchers. I win the roll-off and elect to receive. At reveal, Brad just lays down Obulus and Dirge as they're the only captain and mascot in his list. I choose to go with Ferrite as captain, and also reveal Iron. I then draft Hearth, Alloy, Furnace, and Cast to round out my 6. Brad drafts Bonesaw, Silence, Mist, and Brain Pan and Memory. For terrain we have Fast Ground, Rough Ground, and 4 obstructions. Mortician's deployment from top to bottom is Bonesaw, Dirge, Brain Pan, Memory, Obulus, Silence, and Mist. It should be noted that for this game, Brad is proxying Obulus with Ox and Dirge with Princess. Brad elects to kick off with Mist. Blacksmith deployment from top to bottom is Ferrite, Iron, Hearth, Cast, Furnace, and Alloy. Brad kicks off using his favorite strategy of kicking the ball directly into an obstruction that is just across the halfway line. The scatter resolves so that the ball stops up against the obstruction. Turn 1 allocation for the blacksmiths has 3 on Alloy, 2 on Furnace, 1 on Hearth, 2 on Cast, 2 on Ferrite, and 2 on Iron. Turn 1 allocation for the Morticians is 5 on Obulus, 1 on Bonesaw, 4 on Mist, 1 on Silence, and 3 on Brain Pan and Memory. The blacksmiths begin by activating Alloy, using Acrobatic to dodge 2 inches, sprinting up, gaining possession of the ball, sprinting back, and kicking the ball to Furnace. The kick is successful, and Furnace uses the momentum to make a 4-inch dodge. Brad charges Mist into Alloy. He's very careful to position Mist in such a way that he can dodge off of Alloy into melee with Furnace. Mist has 8 dice on the charge against Alloy's 4s and 1 defense. Brad gets 2 net hits for the momentous dodge. Brad then buys an attack on Furnace, getting 0 net hits. Brad then buys his last attack on Furnace, getting 0 net hits. I activate Furnace and attack Mist with 6 dice against 5-0 defense. Results in 2 net hits, and I go for momentous 1 damage. As a result of Searing Strike, Mist suffers the burning condition. I then pay 1 influence to put Tooled Up on Cast. Brad actually remembers at the beginning of the activation to use Memory's 2-inch control strings dodge. Way to go, buddy. He then activates Dirge, who jogs up into cover. Hearth puts Instruction onto Cast and then jogs forward to engage Mist. Memory dodges 2 inches off of control string. Brad then activates Silence, moves him up into cover, and then attempts to shut out Alloy, which seems like a quality play until you remember that Alloy has already activated this turn. I activate Cast, walk her base to base with Mist, then buy an attack. I have 7 dice against 4-0 defense. My first attack gets 4 net hits thanks to instruction, which results in momentous 3 damage that goes up to 5 damage thanks to the +1 from Tooled Up and the +1 from Burning Passion. On my second attack, I net 2 hits and choose momentous 2 damage, which goes up to 4 damage. Memory makes its 2-inch dodge. Brad activates Bonesaw and sprints him up into the fast ground. Ferrite sprints toward Mist and then uses Get Over Here Iron to give him a 4-inch dodge toward her. She then uses Acrobatic to dodge forward into cover. Memory takes a 2-inch dodge at the beginning of the activation. Brad activates Obulus, takes his 2-inch shadow-like dodge at the beginning of his activation, jogs up the pitch, then uses Puppet Master on Hearth to cause Hearth to move closer to Memory. Iron walks into melee with Mist and makes an attack with 8 dice thanks to 2 gang-ups. The attack generates 4 net hits for a momentous 4 damage, which is enough to take Mist out. I then cast Impetus on Iron because nobody likes wasted influence. Brad then activates Brain Pan, moves up and uses Memory to attack Hearth. He has 5 dice on a 2s2. The attack generates 3 net hits, and Brad selects to do a momentous 2 damage. His second attack gets 3 net hits for another momentous 2 damage. His third attack gets 2 net hits for a momentous 1 damage. At the end of turn 1, I'm in the lead with 2 points. I have 5 momentum and Brad has 3. I win the roll and elect to go first. For turn 2, I allocate 2 to Hearth, 1 to Furnace, 2 to Ferrite, 2 to Alloy, 2 to Iron, and 3 to Cast. Brad brings Mist on from the left side of the pitch at the bottom of the screen, and then allocates 5 to Obulus, 3 to Bonesaw, 3 to Brain Pan and Memory, 3 to Mist, 0 to Dirge, and 0 to Silence. At this point in the game, I realize that a 2-2 game is definitely within reach for me, so I decide to pull Hearth back towards the rest of my team in an attempt to reset the scrum to get me an easy second takeout. I buy an attack on Memory with Hearth, 5 dice against 5s and O's. Brad declares a counterattack. My attack gains 0 net hits. Brad's counterattack has 3 net hits for 2 damage. I buy another attack with Hearth and get 0 net hits. I then walk Hearth out of melee back towards my line. Brad gets 4 net hits on the parting blow for 3 damage. I then legendary with Hearth, giving her a 3-inch melee zone. My thinking here is that when Brad advances to come into the scrum, I'll be able to get a gang up with her pretty much no matter who comes in and where they go. Brad activates Obulus, taking his shadow-like dodge forward towards the midline, then Puppet Masters Hearth to walk right back to where she was. Obulus then walks up, and with his last influence, Brad buys an attack on Hearth. He has 6 dice due to the gang up from Memory on Hearth's 2s2. He gets 4 net hits and selects momentous 2 damage. Ferrite uses her legendary Tongue-in-Cheek to give all blacksmiths within 6 inches of her +2/+2 movement. Alloy is the only blacksmith not within range of the pulse. Ferrite then moves up the field, using Get Over Here Iron to move Iron forward toward the midline. I place Ferrite in such a way that I would force Brad to use Bonesaw's heroic play if he wants to get the most value out of Unexpected Arrival. Brad activates Bonesaw and charges Hearth. The gang up he would gain from Memory is negated by a crowd out from Ferrite. He rolls 8 dice against Hearth's 2s and 2 for 6 net hits, wrapping to the 2. He chooses Momentous Unexpected Arrival, catching Hearth and Ferrite in the pulse, but not Iron. Then selects a momentous dodge off the wrap. Brad decides to push Ferrite the full 4 inches, but decides not to push Hearth at all. Brad then buys a second attack with Bonesaw, rolling 6 dice. He gets 3 net hits and selects a momentous dodge. I think Brad's decision to bring Bonesaw central into the field was a mistake. In attempting to play to the control strengths of the Morticians, he's actually put the most abusable target on his team right in front of all of my heavy hitters. I activate Alloy and jog him towards Bonesaw. I pay 2 influence to use Dirty Knives, hitting Bonesaw with 1 damage, -1 defense, and the poison condition. Brad then activates Brain Pan and Memory, uses Puppet Show to make an attack with Memory. He has 7 dice on the attack thanks to the gang-ups from Obulus and Bonesaw. He rolls 4 net hits for a momentous 3 damage. He then buys a second attack, getting 4 net hits for a momentous 3 damage. He buys a third attack, getting 3 net hits for momentous 2 damage. I activate Iron and walk up into melee with Bonesaw. I buy an attack, getting 7 dice thanks to a gang up from Hearth. Against Bonesaw's 3-0 defense, I get 6 net hits and elect to do the non-momentous double push knockdown. I buy a second attack on Bonesaw, whose defense is now 2-0, for 5 net hits, and choose momentous 4 damage. Brad activates Silence and jogs him into cover. Furnace tools up Cast and then jogs up the pitch to engage Bonesaw. At the end of the jog, he unsnaps the ball behind the obstruction between himself and Ferrite. I made the decision to unsnap the ball here because I didn't want to be in possession of the ball that close to Obulus, and I knew that Bonesaw would be leaving the pitch very shortly. Brad activates Dirge and flies up between the obstruction and Ferrite to possess the ball. I next activate Cast, and during this activation, I forget that Cast has a 6-long playbook and not a 5-long playbook. Fortunately, the math of the situation fixes itself, but I'll show you the mistakes as they happen. Cast walks into melee with Bonesaw and buys an attack. She has 8 dice against his 2-0 defense. She gets 8 net hits. I select Momentous Guild Ball off of the 2 for Shield Glare, lowering his tack and def by 1. And a momentous 2 damage up to 3 thanks to Tooled Up. As you can see, I've lined my dice up as though I have gotten to the extent of the playbook and wrapped to the 3. Fortunately, I took a top playbook result and then the result off of the 2, which is a result accurate to what I rolled. I then buy another attack with Cast, rolling 8 dice when I should be rolling 9 as a result of the def loss from Shield Glare. I again incorrectly stack my dice as though I have wrapped to the 1 when I should just be at the extent of the playbook. I select momentous 1 damage up to 2 thanks to Tooled Up, and the Push Dodge Guild Ball. I elect not to move either model and use the Guild Ball to shield throw at Dirge. Dirge takes 3 damage from the shield throw and then loses possession of the ball. The ball scatters up past Ferrite. I then buy my third attack with Cast, remembering to roll all 9 dice this time, and get 9 net hits against the 2-0 defense of Bonesaw. I select Momentous Guild Ball and Shield Glare Dirge, and a momentous 7 damage. You can also see at this point that I remember that Cast has a 6-long playbook and not a 5-long playbook. The 7 damage at the top of the playbook was more than enough to take Bonesaw out, even if I had not inaccurately selected the 1 damage up to 2 off of the wrap that should not have happened in my second attack. Cast then takes a 1-inch dodge towards both Furnace and Cover thanks to her Swift Strikes character trait. The score is now 4-0. Brad activates Mist, drops a smoke bomb, and then charges Alloy. Alloy uses Defensive Stance. Mist has 8 dice against Alloy's 5-1 defense. Brad rolls 2 net hits for a momentous dodge. At the end of turn 2, the score is 4-0. Blacksmiths have 4 momentum, Morticians have 7. Brad wins the roll and elects to go first. Brad brings Bonesaw back onto the pitch from the top of the screen and moves him towards the fast ground. He then allocates 4 to Bonesaw, 4 to Brain Pan and Memory, 6 to Obulus, none to Silence, none to Mist, and none to Dirge. I allocate 3 to Ferrite, 3 to Iron, 2 to Alloy, 2 to Cast, 1 to Furnace, and 1 to Hearth. Bonesaw activates and charges Ferrite. I use Defensive Stance with Ferrite to put her up to 4s and 2. Bonesaw has 8 dice and gets 3 net hits. He dodges away from Ferrite, picking up the ball as he moves. Bonesaw passes to Dirge with 3 dice needing 6s, and passes successfully. Brad then spends a momentum to use Football Dervish to have Dirge kick the ball back to Bonesaw. It's a 1-die kick needing a 4, and it's successful. Brad uses the momentum to have Bonesaw make a 4-inch dodge, and dodges just within 8 inches of the goal, being careful to stay outside of 1 inch of Ferrite. Brad shoots a 3-die goal with Bonesaw, and misses.
Of course!
The ball scatters in such a way that it just collides with the goalpost and stays. Ferrite uses Acrobatic to disengage from Dirge, and takes advantage of the fact that Brad has no momentum and charges Brain Pan. Ferrite has 8 dice against Brain Pan's 4s and 1. With 3 net hits, I select Momentous Weak Point. Brad then activates Brain Pan and Memory, choosing to attack with Memory. Memory has 5 dice against Hearth's 2-2. The first attack nets 3 hits, and Brad selects Momentous 2 damage. The second attack does 3 net hits. Brad selects Momentous 2 damage, and that takes out Hearth. Brad then uses Puppet Show to dodge Memory 2 inches towards Cast, then buys an attack on Cast with 4 dice against Cast's 3s-2. With 2 net hits, he chooses Momentous 1. Furnace tools up Iron, and then jogs to engage both Dirge and Memory. Obulus uses Shadow-like and then jogs up towards Cast. Brad then buys an attack on Cast with 5 dice against 4s-2. The attack has 3 net hits and does Momentous 2 damage. The second attack has 2 net hits and does 1 damage. The third attack has 2 net hits and does 1 damage. He buys a 4th attack and misses. His 5th attack does 2 net hits and 1 damage, and his 6th attack misses. Alloy circles back to get the ball, moves up towards the obstruction, and kicks to Iron. Iron then uses the momentum to make a 4-inch dodge. Brad activates Silence and jogs him over toward Iron. I activate Cast and attack Memory. I have 4 dice as a result of the gang up from Obulus against Memory's 5-0 defense. I get 1 net hit and take 1 damage. Due to swift strikes, I dodge out. Cast then walks around Furnace to engage Dirge, buys an attack, and gains 1 net hit for 1 damage. Brad then activates Dirge and uses Dirge to engage Iron. I activate Iron, spend 1 influence to use Impetus, and then sprint. I immediately contact Dirge, pushing him 2 inches, and then sprint forward, careful to stay out of Brain Pan's 1-inch melee, to contact Silence and push him 2 inches. I use the rest of my movement to get within 2 inches of the goal. I then spend a momentum for Iron's heroic play, Try Hard, and 1 influence to shoot on goal. I'm within tap-in range, so the target number is -1. Try Hard reduces the number again by -1, so it's a 2-die goal that needs 2s to succeed. Iron scores, and I elect to use the momentum to have him run the length. The score is now 8-2. Brad kicks the ball over to Mist, then activates Mist to retrieve the ball and move into cover. At the end of turn 3, the score is Blacksmiths 8, Morticians 2. The Blacksmiths have 0 momentum, and the Morticians have 5. Brad elects to go first. Brad allocates 4 to Mist, 4 to Bonesaw, 3 to Obulus, 3 to Brain Pan and Memory, 0 to Dirge, and 0 to Silence. I bring Hearth back onto the pitch by the goal, and then allocate 1 to Hearth, 2 to Alloy, 3 to Ferrite, 3 to Iron, 1 to Cast, and 2 to Furnace. And I also forget to allocate my goal influence. Brad activates Mist and charges Hearth. He has 8 dice against her 2s-2 defense. He gets 5 net hits, takes 1 damage, and Momentous double dodge. He then uses Smoke Bomb, shoots on goal with 3 dice, and scores. The score is now 8-6. On my goal kick, I kick the ball directly towards Ferrite, hoping that it will scatter in a direction that she'll be able to get a hold of it and score on her activation. While not an ideal scatter, it's still close enough to where she can at least possess the ball. I activate Ferrite and use Acrobatic to break away from Brain Pan. I then spend 1 to sprint, picking up the ball and heading to within 8 inches of the goal. Ferrite takes a 4-die goal and scores. The game ends 12-6. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please use the comment section to leave us feedback or contact us at the Mountaineers Guild on Facebook or at mountaineersguild.com. Thanks for watching.